Hello, and welcome to English Unpacked. Thank you for joining us today.
Just relax, listen carefully, and enjoy today's topic: why some people are naturally good with money. Let's begin.
It's highly likely that you are settling into a seat right now. Maybe you're just clicking your seatbelt into place, feeling that, slight vibration of the engines beneath you, preparing for a 45-minute flight.
Right, just getting situated.
Yeah, exactly. You're probably looking out the window, watching the tarmac roll by, and hoping to land at your destination, feeling just, a little bit smarter, a little more equipped than when you took off.
Which is a great way to spend a flight, honestly.
It really is. And if that's you,
Mhm.
or, honestly, even if you are just navigating a commute or, walking the dog, we have this central, almost infuriating mystery for you to mull over today.
Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah. So I want you to picture two people in your head. Let's imagine they earn the exact same salary, down to the dollar. They work the exact same mid-level corporate job. They live in the same sprawling city with the exact same cost of living.
Right.
We can even go so far as to say they come from the exact same demographic and family background. So, everything on a spreadsheet is perfectly identical.
Okay, I'm picturing them.
Right, but here's the thing. One of these people operates with this sense of financial peace. They have a healthy buffer, they have a cushion for emergencies, they take vacations without panic.
Must be nice.
Right. But the other person is perpetually trapped in a psychological pressure cooker, just white-knuckling their way through every single month, holding their breath and waiting for that next direct deposit to clear just so they can, buy groceries without checking their balance.
Yeah, the classic paycheck to paycheck panic.
Exactly. So the question is why? How does the exact same math produce two completely different realities?
It really is like the ultimate behavioral question, isn't it?
It really is.
And I think society generally gives us a very lazy, convenient answer to that question. We tend to assume that people who are quote-unquote good with money are just inherently lucky, or maybe they possess some rare mathematical genius.
Right, or we assume there's a hidden trust fund we don't know about.
Exactly. We desperately look for these external justifications. And the reason we do that, honestly, is because the alternative is tough. The idea that the difference is entirely internal, that it stems from our own behavioral psychology and daily choices, well, that can be incredibly uncomfortable to confront.
Because it puts it back on us.
Right. It puts the responsibility squarely back on our own shoulders.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because today, our mission for this deep dive is to completely dismantle that myth.
Absolutely.
We have this fascinating source text on financial psychology in front of us. And it basically takes a sledgehammer to the idea that wealth is just about math. We are going to explore the real underlying architecture of financial success today.
And it goes deep.
It does. The goal here is to extract the psychology, the neurobiology, and the daily systems from this text so that you, listening right now, can fundamentally audit your own relationship with money.
Which is so valuable.
Yeah, we are looking at why financial stability is rarely about raw intelligence and almost entirely about the mental frameworks we operate within.
Right, the invisible structure.
Exactly. And to understand that framework, we really have to start at the absolute foundation. We have to go back to a time before you even understood what a dollar bill was.
Which, that requires a massive paradigm shift for most of us.
How so?
Well, because as adults, we love to operate under this assumption that our financial habits are conscious, highly rational choices.
Right, for sure. We think we're so logical.
Exactly. We think, I am an adult, I have an Excel spreadsheet, I am weighing the pros and cons of buying this car versus saving this money.
Right. The spreadsheet never lies.
But the source material reveals that the foundation of your entire financial life, the invisible architecture dictating those choices, it was actually poured and set long before you even knew how to do basic addition.
Wait, really? How early are we talking?
Psychologists note that our core defining beliefs about money are formed incredibly early. We are talking before the age of 7.
Before age 7? Wow. Think about the cognitive development of a 7-year-old.
Right, it's wild.
They are still trying to master tying their shoelaces. They still, believe in the tooth fairy.
Yeah, they're literally just kids.
And yet, their financial blueprint, like the operating system they will use to buy houses and negotiate salaries in their 30s, is already being hard-coded.
It is.
But here's the thing. Children do not learn this in a classroom.
Yeah.
There is no kindergarten module on asset allocation or inflation or the emotional weight of compound interest.
I mean, I wish there was, but no.
Right.
Yeah.
So how exactly is a 5-year-old building a financial worldview?
Well, what's fascinating here is the specific mechanism of that absorption.
Right.
It is entirely observational.
Okay, observational.
Yeah, it's not about what parents explicitly sit down and try to teach their kids. The brain of a child under 7 is heavily operating in a theta brainwave state,
Native brainwaves, okay.
which is essentially a state of high neuroplasticity and subconscious programming. They are absolute sponges. They don't listen to the lecture. They absorb the environment.
That makes total sense.
And the text draws a very sharp contrast to illustrate this. So imagine a child who grows up in a household where money is a constant ambient source of friction.
Just always tense.
Exactly. They see their parents' jaw muscles clench when the mail arrives. They hear hushed, stressed arguments about the electric bill through the bedroom wall.
Oh, man. Yeah. Kids pick up on that instantly.
They really do, and they constantly hear phrases like, "we can't afford that," or "money doesn't grow on trees."
Right.
That child doesn't process the economics of the situation. They process the cortisol.
Wow. They process the cortisol.
Yeah, they internalize the physiological stress response and attach it to the concept of money. So to that child, money becomes synonymous with danger, scarcity, and fear.
And then on the flip side, you have a child in a different household.
And
Importantly, and I think the source text stresses this, the income in the second household might be exactly the same as the first.
yes, crucial point. This isn't about rich versus poor.
Right? This is about behavior. So this second child watches their parents handle money calmly. They see them sit at the kitchen table paying bills without that ambient tension.
No clenched jaws.
Exactly. They hear their parents talking about a future vacation and, setting aside a little bit each week.
Right.
That child absorbs a completely different reality. To them, money is not a monster hiding in the closet. Money is a tool.
It's functional.
Yeah, it's a utility like electricity. It can be controlled, managed, and utilized to power their life.
Precisely. And the psychological term the text uses for this absorbed worldview is your money script.
A money script. I like that.
I find this terminology incredibly accurate because, well, think about what a script is. It's something that is written by someone else, but that you are required to act out.
Oh, that's deep.
Right. It is a deeply unconscious belief system that you carry directly into adulthood, often without having the slightest realization that you are following someone else's stage direction.
You're just reading the lines.
Exactly. Your reactions to money are not your own. They are inherited reflexes.
The source text gives us this brilliant historical example of 2 brothers to really hammer home how precise this absorption is.
Oh, yeah. The brother story is fascinating.
I want to highlight this because it proves it's not just about, broad genetics or a general family disposition. It is about the specific economic climate of the household during that exact critical window of neuroplasticity.
Right. Timing is everything.
So we have 2 brothers born 10 years apart, same parents, same DNA, same house. But when the older brother was in that crucial pre-7 age range, the family business was absolutely booming. The economy was great.
So times were good.
Times were great. So what does he hear during his sponge years? He hears his father saying things like, we'll figure it out, and don't worry, there's always more where that came from. He sees risks paying off.
Right. He is practically bathing in an environment of financial ease and optimism during his most formative neurological years. His money script is being written in the language of abundance, security, and risk tolerance.
Exactly. Now, fast forward 10 years. The older brother is a teenager, so his window is closed, but the younger brother is now in that formative window.
Okay.
But the macroeconomic environment has crashed. The family business is struggling to stay afloat. The reality of the house has completely shifted.
It's a totally different world.
It really is. So what does the younger brother hear? He hears his father saying, we cannot waste a single penny, and we have to prepare for the worst.
Wow.
Is the exact same father, but the younger brother is downloading a completely different money script, one of hypervigilance, frugality, and fear.
And that single-decade gap completely dictates their adult financial lives.
It's wild to think about.
It is. You might see the older brother decades later taking massive entrepreneurial risks, comfortable with debt, maybe even a bit reckless because his baseline script says everything always works out. Meanwhile, the younger brother could end up earning a massive corporate salary, but he hoards every penny, terrified of investing in the stock market because his script says ruin is always just around the corner.
It's like walking around with an outdated operating system installed when you were 6 and wondering why your adult apps keep crashing.
That is a perfect analogy.
You were trying to run a sophisticated adult financial life on software that was programmed by a stressed-out parent in a different economy decades ago.
Exactly.
You were sitting there looking at your checking account, feeling this inexplicable spike in your heart rate, and you don't even realize it's not your panic. It's an echo.
An echo of the past.
But okay, let me push back on this a little, because framing it this way feels almost deterministic.
I can see that, yeah.
Like, if my money script is locked in by the time I am 7, am I just doomed to repeat my parents' financial trauma forever? What about the critical thinking we develop in our 20s?
That is the exact right question to ask, and it's a trap a lot of behavioral psychology falls into, honestly. But the text is very clear that this is actually an incredibly optimistic finding.
Oh, good. I need some optimism here.
Right. Because what's fascinating here is if being good with money was purely genetic or an innate talent, then yes, you would be doomed.
Yeah.
But because these scripts are absorbed from your environment, they are learned behaviors. And anything that is neurologically learned can be consciously unlearned.
Okay, so we can overwrite the code.
Exactly. It requires effort, yes, but once you shine a light on your money script, once you identify it and say, I am hoarding cash out of a fear I absorbed when I was 5, you strip it of its unconscious power.
You bring it into the light.
You move the process from the primitive emotional center of your brain into the prefrontal cortex, which handles logic. You can literally start writing a new script.
Which is such a massive relief. It really takes the shame right out of the equation. You aren't fundamentally broken, you just have some bad code to debug.
That's a great way to put it.
But, of course, understanding your baseline script is really only step 1. The real challenge is observing how that unconscious script actually plays out in the trenches of your daily life.
The day-to-day choices.
Exactly. And that brings us to the moment of decision, the point of friction where our scripts meet reality, which is how we handle immediate temptation.
Delayed gratification.
Yes.
If the childhood money script is the invisible foundation, delayed gratification is the visible structure you build on top of it.
Right.
It is the psychological capacity to endure mild, short-term discomfort, waiting for a bigger reward in the future, instead of capitulating to the desire for a smaller reward right this second.
Yeah, that urge to just get it now.
And to truly understand the mechanics of this, the text dives into Walter Mischel's famous 1970s Stanford marshmallow test.
The marshmallow test. I feel like everyone has heard some version of this, but let's break down exactly what happened in that room, because the details really matter.
You do, yeah.
So, researchers took preschool-aged children, sat them alone in a room, and placed a single marshmallow on a plate in front of them.
Just staring right at them.
Right. Then the researcher laid out a torturous proposition. They basically said, you can eat this marshmallow right now, or I am going to leave the room for 15 minutes. If you wait and the marshmallow is still there when I get back, I will give you a second marshmallow.
It is a profound test of the human brain's ability to override its own evolutionary impulses.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the limbic system, the older part of the brain, sees sugar and screams, calories, survival, eat it now.
Just pure instinct.
Right. But the prefrontal cortex, the logical planner, has to somehow suppress that ancient drive for 15 agonizing minutes to secure a 100% return on investment.
Which is tough for a 4-year-old.
It's tough for adults. But the text highlights the coping mechanisms of the kids who succeeded. They didn't just sit there staring at the marshmallow using raw willpower.
Right, they had strategies.
They actively distracted themselves. They sang songs, they turned their chairs around to face the wall, they covered their eyes. They intuitively understood that willpower is weak against visual stimulus.
Okay, but hold on. I have to challenge the source text here for a second.
Sure, go for it.
Because I've read some recent critiques and replication studies of Mischel's original experiment.
Yeah.
A lot of modern psychologists argue that this test didn't actually measure inherent willpower at all.
Okay, what did it measure?
It measured trust and socioeconomic background. Like, think about it. If a kid grew up in poverty or in a chaotic home where promises were frequently broken, eating the marshmallow immediately is actually the most logical, rational choice.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Right. If you don't trust that the researcher will actually come back, or you don't trust that the second marshmallow even exists, delaying gratification isn't smart. It's foolish. Take what you can get now.
Yeah, That makes a lot of sense.
Does our source material account for the fact that this might be about environmental trust rather than just, like, magical self-control?
That is a brilliant point, and actually, if we connect this to the bigger picture of financial psychology, that modern critique doesn't invalidate the source text. It actually deepens it.
Oh, really? How so?
Because you are entirely correct. The child's ability to wait was heavily predicated on whether they trusted the environment to reward their patience.
Right.
And how does that apply to adult finances? Perfectly. Your ability to delay gratification with your paycheck depends entirely on whether you trust the financial system.
Oh,
If your childhood script told you that money can be wiped out in an instant or that the system is rigged against you, you won't invest. You won't save.
because you don't believe the payoff is coming.
Exactly. You will spend your money immediately because you don't trust the metaphorical researcher to come back with the second marshmallow.
Wow. That completely changes the framing. It's not about being weak-willed. It's about whether you believe the future is secure enough to invest in. That makes so much sense.
It's a huge shift in perspective.
It is. But, regardless of the underlying reason, the longitudinal data from that study is undeniable. The kids who waited, whether through trust, willpower, or distraction, became adults who were vastly more financially stable, had higher credit scores, and were better at saving.
Yes, the long-term correlation is very strong.
Which forces you, the listener, to ask a very uncomfortable question right now on this flight.
Yeah.
What is your adult marshmallow?
Oh, yeah. Because the test hasn't gone away. If anything, the modern world has weaponized the marshmallow test.
Exactly. Is your marshmallow a new smartphone that has, like, one extra camera lens you don't need, but you just crave the dopamine of the unboxing experience?
Or a pair of shoes that just went on sale.
Yes. And an algorithm placed a targeted ad in your feed right when you were feeling stressed from work. We don't have researchers putting physical marshmallows on our desks, but every single day, tech companies and marketers are placing digital marshmallows in our pockets, trying to short-circuit our prefrontal cortex.
And that is why the text emphasizes that every financial decision is a version of this test.
Every single one.
When your paycheck hits your account, you are back in that room. Do you spend it today to get the immediate fleeting spike of dopamine? Or do you wait?
Right.
Do you funnel it into investments and let compound interest bake you a much larger reward down the line? The people who are naturally good with money have trained this specific muscle. They create a pause. They interrupt the impulse.
And I want to be really precise here, because if we aren't careful, this just sounds like we are telling people to be miserable.
Right, like never spend a dime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The source text explicitly clarifies that this is not a manifesto for extreme frugality. The goal is not to live like a monk, denying yourself every pleasure until you die with a massive bank account you never got to enjoy.
Nobody wants that.
No. The crucial distinction the author makes is between spending on purpose versus spending on impulse.
That is the defining line. Spending on purpose means you are making a conscious allocation of resources. If you budget for a beautiful vacation or a high-end dinner and you spend the money, you are not failing the test.
Right, you're actually succeeding.
Exactly. You are actively enjoying the marshmallow you planned for. Spending on impulse is the failure.
Yeah.
It is when you are scrolling late at night, exhausted, and you drop $200 on something you didn't even know existed 5 minutes ago. You surrendered your long-term stability for a momentary chemical hit.
And your ability to withstand that impulse, your ability to, pause and spend on purpose is deeply connected to how you view the world's resources.
Which is a perfect segue.
Yeah, it brings us to the third core concept in our deep dive today.
Yeah.
The profound difference between a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset. And this isn't just self-help jargon, right? These mindsets literally alter your cognitive function.
They absolutely do. The source text breaks down the fundamental psychology of these two states. Let's start with scarcity.
Okay, let's hear it.
At its core, a scarcity mindset views the economic world as a zero-sum game. It sees wealth as a fixed pie, and if someone else gets a slice, well, that means there is less for you.
It's very competitive.
Very. It dictates that money is inherently limited, incredibly fragile, and must be fiercely protected. Therefore, any spending of money, even a smart investment, is registered by the brain as a threat.
And the text points out how this leads directly to fear-based paralysis. I actually want to bring in some external behavioral economics here to support the text, specifically this concept of the cognitive bandwidth tax.
Oh yes, the bandwidth tax.
Have you heard of this? Research shows that when you are operating in a state of financial scarcity, the stress and the constant mental calculation of survival literally occupy so much processing power in your brain that your effective IQ drops.
Wow.
Yeah, you become biologically incapable of long-term planning because your amygdala is screaming at you to just survive the day.
Which perfectly explains the paralysis the source text describes. If you are terrified of losing what little you have, you start making strategic moves. You avoid investing in the stock market because it feels like a casino where you will inevitably lose your precious resources. You avoid asking your boss for a raise because the fear of rejection or the fear of rocking the boat and losing your job, it just feels too existentially dangerous.
Yeah, it's safer to just stay quiet.
Exactly. You play not to lose rather than playing to win.
Conversely, the text outlines the abundance mindset. This is the belief that money is not a fixed pool. It is dynamic. It can be created, grown, and multiplied through value exchange.
Right. It's expansive.
Yeah, it is not a shrinking pie. It is a bakery where you can always learn to bake more pies.
Yeah.
But honestly, I have to play devil's advocate again here.
Please do.
When I hear abundance mindset, alarms kind of start going off in my head. Isn't this just a rebranded version of toxic positive thinking?
Ah, the manifestation crowd.
Exactly. Like, if I just sit on my couch, close my eyes, and visualize a Ferrari, the universe is going to manifest a bag of cash in my living room. Believing I'll be rich doesn't magically pay my rent.
No, it doesn't. And if we connect this to the bigger picture and the deeper behavioral mechanics laid out in the text, we see the author is very careful to avoid that exact manifestation trap.
Okay, that's good.
The text is unambiguous. Positive thinking in a vacuum does absolutely nothing. The universe does not care about your thoughts.
Right.
The magic of the abundance mindset is not in the thought itself. The magic is entirely in the actions that the thought permits you to take.
Oh, I see. The actions downstream of the belief.
Exactly. Your mindset is the filter through which you evaluate risk. People with an abundance mindset are not blindly optimistic. They are simply willing to take calculated risks because they don't view failure as a fatal blow.
That's a huge distinction.
Because they believe resources can eventually be replenished, they are willing to spend money to learn a new skill. They are willing to endure the acute discomfort of negotiating a salary because they believe there is enough money in the corporate budget for their value.
Right. They aren't terrified of the word no.
Exactly. They see a failed business venture not as the catastrophic end to their financial life, but as a temporary data point, an expensive lesson they will use to succeed next time.
The text gives us this brilliantly simple, everyday example to illustrate this difference in risk evaluation. Let's put you, the listener, into this scenario right now.
Let's do it.
Imagine you are offered an online professional course. It is highly relevant to your career, it could genuinely improve your technical skills, and it costs exactly $200. Now let's look at how the two different mindsets process this exact same scenario.
Okay. The person operating from a scarcity mindset looks at the price tag, and their internal monologue immediately says, I can't afford to lose $200.
Yeah, instant defense mechanism.
The cognitive focus is entirely on the loss, the reduction of their current finite resources. The $200 is viewed as gone forever, extracted from their safety net.
But the person with the abundance mindset looks at the exact same course, the exact same $200 price tag, and their internal monologue says, I can't afford to miss this opportunity.
It is the exact same $200, the exact same objective reality. But the neurological framing results in a completely different decision, which inevitably leads to a completely different long-term outcome.
Because one acts and one doesn't.
Exactly. The person with scarcity keeps their $200, feeling momentarily safe, but they remain stagnant in their skill set. They're earning potential plateaus.
Yeah.
The person with abundance spends the $200. They acquire the new skill. They leverage it to secure a promotion worth an extra $5,000 a year. And their initial belief that money can be multiplied by investing in oneself is validated.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Over decades, that compounding effect creates a massive chasm between the two people.
So as you sit there on your flight, looking down at the clouds, ask yourself, when you look at an investment in yourself, whether it's a book, a course, or a piece of equipment, do you immediately see what you are losing, or do you instinctively look for what you could be building?
It's such an important shift.
It really is.
But this raises an important question, though, and it signals a critical transition in our deep dive.
Okay, where are we going?
Well, we have talked about unearthing childhood scripts, the willpower required to delay gratification, and the cognitive reframing of an abundance mindset. These are all internal psychological states.
Right.
They require cognitive energy. But here is the brutal truth the source text reveals. If you rely entirely on maintaining a perfect, highly motivated psychological state every single day in order to make good financial choices,
Yeah.
you are mathematically guaranteed to fail.
Yes, because motivation is an emotion. It is a feeling, and human feelings are incredibly fickle. You cannot base a multi-decade wealth-building strategy on a fleeting emotion.
You just can't.
The human brain experiences decision fatigue. If your financial strategy requires you to wake up every single day feeling like an absolute warrior, ready to slay the dragon of temptation with your mighty prefrontal cortex. What happens on a Thursday evening after a terrible day at work? What happens when you are sleep-deprived, your boss yelled at you, your cortisol is spiking, and you feel like you, quote-unquote, deserve a treat? Your abundance mindset is going to collapse.
That is exactly the vulnerability the text addresses. Motivation is fundamentally unreliable. Willpower is a depleting resource, like a muscle that gets tired the more you use it throughout the day.
Oh, yeah, by 8 p.m. it's gone.
If your financial success depends on being motivated, your results will always be chaotic. And this leads us to the fourth core concept, the autopilot advantage, the absolute necessity of building systems.
The source material introduces a psychological concept here that honestly should be printed out and taped to everyone's bathroom mirror.
I love this quote.
It says, "We don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems."
It is a profound, almost humbling truth. People who are naturally good with money are not walking around with superhuman levels of discipline.
No, they aren't robots.
Right. They aren't constantly fighting off temptation using sheer willpower every time they walk past a store. They have simply realized that willpower is a losing game. So instead of relying on it, they outsource the discipline.
Outsource the discipline.
Yeah, they build automatic systems and behavioral architecture that bypass the need for daily motivation entirely.
The text gives us 3 very specific examples of these automatic systems, these friction-reducing habits of naturally good savers. First, and arguably most important, they automate their savings.
Crucial step.
The very moment they get paid, before the money even settles, before they have a chance to look at the balance and feel flush with cash, a percentage is automatically routed into a separate savings or investment account.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. The money vanishes before they can mentally claim it as spending power.
The neurological brilliance of that strategy is that the decision is only made once.
Just once.
They engage their prefrontal cortex, their logical brain, one single time when they logged in and set up the automatic transfer. They do not have to wake up every payday and manually move the money, wrestling with the emotional temptation to keep it in checking for a new gadget.
Right.
The system handles the execution silently in the background.
The second habit the text highlights is tracking spending. But it emphasizes a crucial nuance here. They don't do this because they are obsessed with spreadsheets or because they enjoy self-flagellation.
Nobody enjoys that.
Right. They track their spending weekly because it has become a deeply ingrained, emotionally neutral routine. It is exactly like brushing your teeth.
That's a great comparison.
You don't need to be highly motivated to brush your teeth. It's just basic hygiene. Tracking money becomes financial hygiene. It is not an emotional event where you judge your worth. It is just a mechanical check-in to ensure reality matches the plan.
Yeah, just looking at the numbers. And the third habit is perhaps the most actionable immediate takeaway from the entire text.
Okay, what is it?
It is a system designed specifically to combat that modern marshmallow test we discussed earlier, especially in the age of frictionless digital commerce. It is the 24-hour rule for unplanned purchases.
Okay, so what does this all mean? The 24-hour rule. Let's say you see a targeted ad for a jacket. You didn't wake up wanting a jacket, but suddenly you need this jacket.
They've all been there.
The rule is simple. You force yourself to wait a full 24 hours before completing the purchase. You can put it in the cart, but you do not click checkout. You close the laptop. You sleep on it. I love reframing this as a mandatory cooling off period for your wallet.
Exactly. And let's look at the biology of why this works. When you see that item, your brain experiences a spike in dopamine.
Oh yeah, the rush.
That's the neurotransmitter associated with anticipation and desire. E-commerce platforms are explicitly designed by behavioral psychologists to remove all friction from this moment. One-click checkout and Apple Pay exist entirely to let you buy the item while the dopamine is peaking before logic can intervene.
Oh, for sure. It's too easy.
The 24-hour rule artificially reintroduces friction. It forces a temporal separation between the stimulus and the response.
Well, wait, let me push back slightly. Is the 24-hour rule actually effective at stopping the purchase? Or is it just delaying the inevitable?
That's fair.
Like if I really, really want that jacket, putting it in my cart and sleeping on it usually just means I wake up and buy it at 8 a.m. instead of midnight.
Yeah.
How does a mere 24 hours actually change the psychological outcome for most things?
It is a fair critique, and the text acknowledges that you will still buy some things after 24 hours. But the goal isn't to reach zero spending. The goal is to filter out the purely chemical impulses.
Okay.
When you sleep, your brain processes and consolidates information. The intense, urgent dopamine spike of the moment largely dissipates overnight. You shift from the limbic system back to the prefrontal cortex. What most people find is that after 24 hours, the marshmallow just doesn't look quite as appealing.
You sort of wake up and realize, oh, I don't really need this.
Exactly. You realize you have 3 similar jackets in the closet. The urgency evaporates. You only end up buying the things you actually value.
Then it makes total sense.
Yeah.
It acts as a filtration system for your desires.
Sure.
And again, this highlights how incredibly freeing systems are. They remove the daily, exhausting burden of constant choice.
Consider a hypothetical scenario with 2 different people who both have the exact same goal. They both decide they want to save $500 a month.
Okay.
Person A relies on their memory and their motivation to manually transfer that money at the end of the month, hoping there is still $500 left over after all their daily choices.
Good luck with that.
Right. Person B relies on a system. They set up an automatic transfer on the first of the month. According to the text, person B will almost always win, regardless of who is actually more inherently motivated. Person B could be incredibly lazy, they could be highly impulsive, but because the system is handling the execution, they succeed. Person A could be highly disciplined, but one moment of exhaustion, one bad day at work, destroys the goal. Systems protect us from our own human nature.
Systems protect us from ourselves. It is the ultimate hack. Now, we have covered the deep internal beliefs, the childhood scripts, the abundance mindset, and we have covered the mechanical systems and automation.
We've covered a lot ground.
We really have. But our deep dive has one final core concept to explore. And this one is fascinating because it bridges the gap between our internal thoughts and the external world. It is about how we broadcast these mindsets.
Ah, yes.
It is about the very vocabulary we use. This final section is all about the language of wealth.
This is a subtle point in the text, but arguably one of the most powerful when applied daily. The author argues that the specific words we choose to use when we talk about money, both to others and in our own heads, ultimately cement our financial reality.
Cement our reality.
Well, this leans heavily into the concept of linguistic determinism, the idea that the language you use actually shapes and limits your cognitive processes. Language shapes belief, and belief over time dictates behavior.
The text gives us a brilliant, direct comparison between 2 very common phrases. Imagine you are invited to a group dinner at a really expensive restaurant by some friends, and it is just not in your budget right now. You cannot go.
It happens all the time.
The first and most common way to decline is to say, I can't afford that.
Very common.
And the second way to decline, describing the exact same objective reality that you are not going to spend the money, is to say, that's not a priority for me right now.
Okay, a subtle difference.
But here's where it gets really interesting. I want you, the listener, to try a live thought experiment right now in your seat. Think of something you want but know you shouldn't buy right now.
Okay, picture it.
Say out loud or just in your head, I can't afford that. Pay attention to your body. Notice how your chest feels a little tighter. Notice the slight feeling of restriction.
It feels heavy.
It does. Now clear your head and say the second phrase. That is not a priority for me right now. Notice how your posture literally changes. Notice how the restriction vanishes. When you look at those 2 sentences on paper, they accomplish the identical task of declining the dinner. But when you internalize them, they create 2 vastly different psychological and physiological states.
Precisely. The text analyzes the emotional resonance of these phrases through the lens of locus of control.
Locus of control.
Yeah, when you say, I can't afford that, you have an external locus of control. You are essentially declaring powerlessness. You are positioning yourself as a victim of circumstance.
Right.
It implies that money is an external, autonomous force that dictates your life and restricts your movements. It heavily reinforces the scarcity mindset we discussed earlier, constantly focusing your brain on what you lack.
But when you change that one sentence, when you consciously rewire your response to say, that's not a priority for me right now, you instantly shift to an internal locus of control. You reclaim your agency. You are no longer a victim of a small bank account. You are the CEO of your life, making a strategic allocation of your finite resources.
I love that framing.
It implies that you have control over your money, and you are simply choosing to direct it elsewhere. Maybe your priority is aggressively paying down student loans or saving for a down payment or just keeping a buffer so you can sleep at night. You are in the driver's seat.
And this empowerment extends beyond just how we talk to ourselves. The text highlights how people who are naturally adept with money behave in broader social situations. They possess a specific fluency.
A fluency with money.
Yes, they tend to speak about money calmly, they speak directly, and most importantly, they speak entirely without shame.
Yes, the shame aspect is massive. The text notes that these people can use the word budget without feeling like they are admitting a personal failure.
Which is huge.
In so many circles, people treat the word budget like a dirty word, like it is an admission that you are poor, restricted, or failing to keep up with the Joneses. But to someone with a healthy money script, a budget has no emotional weight. It is just a plan. It is a neutral, practical tool like a map.
They can also navigate conversations about income and strategy appropriately. The text mentions they can ask questions like, how much do you earn in that role? Or how are you structuring your investments in the right context without crippling discomfort?
Just casually.
Yeah, they view money as a normal, practical, universal topic of human existence rather than something inherently mysterious, emotionally loaded, or taboo.
Which raises an incredibly important question for you, the listener. How often do you actively avoid talking about money just because it feels slightly awkward?
It's so common.
How many times have you sat at a table, nodding along in a conversation, pretending to understand an investing term like an ETF or a backdoor Roth or compound yield because you were too embarrassed to just stop and say, I actually don't know what that means. Can you explain it to me?
That is the ultimate danger of the cultural taboo surrounding money that the text warns against. In many cultures, money is treated as a deeply private, almost shameful secret.
Like we aren't supposed to talk about it at the dinner table.
Right. We are explicitly taught from childhood that it is impolite or crass to discuss it. But this silence has a devastating compounding cost over a lifetime. If you treat money as a taboo, you isolate yourself on an island.
You're just totally alone.
You never learn from the financial successes or, more importantly, the failures of others. You never compare negotiation strategies with your peers to ensure you are being paid fairly. You never ask the basic questions that could fundamentally improve your financial literacy. The silence actively, continuously hurts you. By keeping money in the dark, you allow fear, ignorance, and bad habits to thrive unchecked.
It is so true. We will talk to our friends about the most intimate details of our lives, our health scares, our relationship problems, our deepest parenting struggles, our mental health. But the moment the topic turns to retirement account balances or credit card debt, everyone stares at their shoes.
Complete silence.
Breaking that silence, changing the vocabulary from shame to agency, is the final crucial puzzle piece in building this natural affinity for managing wealth.
It truly brings everything full circle. From the unconscious, silent scripts we absorb as children to the language we consciously, loudly choose to speak as adults.
Wow. Okay, we have covered an immense deep landscape of behavioral psychology and finance today on this deep dive. Let us do a rapid recap of the 5 key takeaways from our source text so you can lock these frameworks in as you prepare for your final descent.
Sounds good. Number 1, we explored the invisible blueprint. We learned that our foundational money scripts are largely absorbed before age 7 by observing the ambient financial anxiety or calmness of our parents, and that identifying this script is the first step to debugging it.
Right. And number 2, we dissected the modern marshmallow test, emphasizing that financial stability relies on the neurological ability to delay gratification, utilizing friction to ensure we spend on purpose rather than on impulse.
Exactly. Number 3, we broke down the self-fulfilling prophecies of scarcity versus abundance mindsets. We saw how scarcity acts as a cognitive tax that paralyzes decision-making, while viewing money as a dynamic tool dictates the calculated, brave decisions that actually build wealth.
Love that. Number 4, we champion the autopilot advantage.
Yeah.
Remember the golden rule, you fall to the level of your systems. Automating your financial life and using rules like the 24-hour pause will beat relying on fleeting, unreliable motivation every single time.
And finally, number 5, the vocabulary of wealth. We learned that swapping a phrase like, I can't afford that for that's not a priority right now, shifts your brain from an external locus of powerlessness to an internal locus of control, and that breaking the cultural taboo of talking about money is absolutely essential for your ongoing growth.
Now, if there is one empowering, overarching message we want to reiterate from the core thesis of this text, it is this. Absolutely none of these traits are permanent.
None of them.
If you spent this entire deep dive recognizing yourself in the scarcity examples, or realizing your childhood money script is a total mess, or admitting that you fail the digital marshmallow test every time there's a flash fail online, that is not a life sentence.
Exactly. It is simply actionable data. Identifying the flaw in your operating system is the mandatory first step to writing a new code.
Writing the new code.
The moment you understand why your brain is pushing you to make these decisions, you gain the unprecedented power to intervene and make different ones. Money habits are not a genetic lottery. They are built incrementally. One system, one delayed purchase, and one conscious belief at a time.
We want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over as your flight finally touches down and you head back out into the terminal. We started this deep dive by discussing how children absorb their foundational money scripts entirely by observation, just by watching the ambient behavior of their parents.
Right, the sponge effect.
So, building on that reality, what unconscious money scripts are you currently broadcasting to the people around you? Your kids, your younger siblings, your friends, your partner?
Oh, that's a powerful question.
Every time you pull out your wallet, every time you react to an unexpected bill, every time you talk about your salary, what script are you silently writing for them?
It is a profound, almost intimidating responsibility when you look at it through that lens.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you step off this plane or finish your commute feeling fully equipped to make your very next financial decision firmly on purpose and never on impulse. Until next time.